Thank you so much for attending my hero difficulty rating tier list. Before getting into the content, you should know that Blast Slam 5's playoffs are happening this weekend. Blast is sponsoring the channel this week, and if Team Falcons wins, I'm contractually obligated to post a recording of me crying. For the record, they never asked me to do that. I just put it in the proposal, and they said yes. Check Wikipedia to see when the action starts in your time zone, and if you stick around for the finals, you may get to see a special piece of content I've cooked up for the event. Thank you very much to Blast for helping support Dota 2 PowerPoints. So today's content is going to be putting all 126 Dota heroes on a tier list based on how difficult they are to play. So the tiers are pretty self-explanatory. Galaxy Brain, there's probably going to be about 5-ish heroes in there, maybe a few more, and then Genuinely Difficult is genuinely difficult. That one has no flavor to it whatsoever. I didn't even try. Specialty Required is like you need experience playing the hero in order to play it effectively. I understand it now is like you read the abilities and you play one game and now you understand like 95% of the hero. GG Easy is the easiest heroes in the game. It's all pretty self-explanatory. Going into it first, as always, we have Abaddon. Abba is overall pretty easy. The only difficult part of really playing Abaddon, so there's two things, right? The first is not wasting your ultimate, being aware of how it triggers, and then using Aphotic Shield correctly. And then knowing how to use Mist Coil to heal is like basically the same as using Aphotic Shield correctly. Just being able to identify when the right time is to use it. As a core goes, he's about as smooth brain as you can possibly get because of Curse of Avernus, that's what it's called. You kind of just hit people and run away. He's definitely one of the easiest heroes in the game. I'm struggling to decide if he... Well, I did just call him one of the easiest heroes in the game. He probably should be GG Easy. Plus, it's... like, his ultimate is built in so that it will always do something. Like, if you're getting wailed on, it will pop itself, so you can't even forget to use his ulti. There is workaround for that. Like, if you break him, he has to manually activate it, and a lot of people don't know that, but, like, who cares? He's in GG Easy category, for sure. Alch is a little bit difficult, actually, because his abilities work in very weird ways. Like, one of the things that you'll see a lot with GG-EZ, and I understand it now, is heroes who have very easily transferable skills. Alch is, like, low-key not... a lot of his skills are not that transferable. And it's because his abilities work in such a weird way. Like, very few stuns threaten to stun you if you use them improperly. So you get punished for messing up with your W. Being caught with your pants down and not having ulti is, like, a really bad feeling, as Alch as well. Shard is not enough to, like, mitigate the impact of that. His Q is weird. You have to, like, learn where you can put it down and then drag free baggro to hit multiple creeps at the same time. And that's, like, kind of a weird tech, though a lot of heroes do something analogous to that. But also his just game plan. He's, like, a super weird tempo core, but, like, also he's not. and I guess you also need to know every other Ags in the game and what it does and its impact on the game. Otherwise, you're just going to have people blaring in voice chat begging for you to buy them in eggs. So I'm going to put him in Specialty Required. Mostly because if you die 2 times in a row as Alch, you instantly lose the game. Ancient Apparition is, I understand it now, only because of his ultimate having a really weird targeting scheme. He is a very weird hero when he's using his ultimate. Outside of that, he's like, whatever. You put a little circle on the ground. You have an auto-click attack. You press cold feet when it feels good. Like, he's very simple. It's just his ultimate has weird targeting. Anti-Mage is, like, kind of a hard one to rate because there are a lot of Anti-Mage specialists who will tell you that he is up here. But, like, he's not. Like, I think the difficulty of him comes from Counterspell and being able to recognize situations where it is and isn't a good idea to use it. Because getting your Counterspell, like, bulldogged out of you by people pump faking their spells is super embarrassing. And it can happen a lot. Or you'll get situations where, like, a Wraith King is, like, right on top of you or something like that, and it's like, okay, well, if I hit Counterspell and I miss the Counterspell, then he can stun me for free, and that sucks. And also his macro game is, like, very unique. He's the only carry with a built-in, well, other carries have strong mobility effects that are like Blink, but Blink itself is, like, you know, compare this to Waveform or something like that, or Pounce on Slark. It has a very different application on his macro game, and therefore he is kind of difficult to play. Also, his lane matchup spread is very weird. So I'm going to put him in Specialty Required because there is a level of mechanics and macro play that he involves, but, like, he's on the easier end of Specialty Required for sure. Arc Warden is genuinely difficult. So the thing about Arc Warden is he actually has the same problem as Alk of being caught with your pants down on your ultimate. Because if you don't have your ultimate available to you, either it's not already up or you can't pop it, this hero sucks. So you need to have the ultimate up pretty much all the time. And then he's a micro hero. And he's a micro hero that casts a bunch of spells. So for a while, you have to use some like Meepo skills. I know that there is that one console command where you hit W and it will just use whichever W is not on cooldown. So there is some ways to get around it. But if you're really playing the hero to their maximum effect, you do need to have micro skills. And you're microing a being with spells. And if it dies, you are still alive, but there's still a considerable penalty because of the amount of gold that it gives. Also, his macro is weird. He's another one of those weirdo heroes. And you have to juggle Midas cooldowns. So that's the true thing that you have to do with this hero. Axe is he's probably GG easy. He's very straightforward. All of his abilities can probably be explained in 3 words. If you really want to try to do that, that might be an interesting thing to do, like iconic hero explanations at some point. He's very simple. The hardest part of Axe is like those dunks where you're really pushing it. Like, it's funny to me, actually, that he's right next to Abaddon, because Abaddon is one of the heroes that lets you flex that skill if you're a really good Axe player. Because you can dunk him when he's above 400. I think the limit is 475. So sniping him in that tiny range, and there's other heroes with similar situations, and just any hero that, they're running away at like 470 HP, and you have to be able to recognize that and then dunk them on the way out. So he's got a tiny amount of finesse to him, but he's mostly just GG easy. A very simple lane as well. Bane is probably... Here's the thing. You can't rate heroes by, like, their absolute maximum potential. Like, because pretty much every hero in the game is, like... If you play them to the absolute optimum perfection pro player level, they are all difficult. Like, Lich will probably wind up being in GG easy, but if you're doing the, like Lich, for example, will probably wind up in easy GG, but if you're doing the, like, blink in, they don't have time to react... Sinister Gaze, Shard, ulti combo. Like, that is a brief moment of mechanical difficulty. So with Bane, I'm not really factoring in the, like, pseudo Manta Dodge effect on Nightmare, but Nightmare's rules are kind of weird, and you sort of have to see it in action. So I do think you need to play a game as Bane in order to understand, like, his whole shtick. Plus, you need to have good target priority for your ulti. And you can really mess your team up, which adds into it. If you can grief, your hero is harder. For sure. Batrider is like, man, back in the day, I think he was specialty required. Now, I think he's like borderline GG easy. He's not, though, because he's got weird mechanics. Understanding how sticky napalm stacks work and interact with his kit is kind of difficult. Flame Break is also a skill shot that if you mess it up, can actually save them instead of get them killed. So I'm going to put him in I understand it now, but it really is just one game, and you're like, oh, wow. That was fun. I'm going to buy a Witchblade. He's not that hard. He's not that hard, but he's got a high ceiling too. You can do some really cool stuff with this hero. Beastmaster is specialty required. He is a, like, ostensibly micro hero, but keep in mind that a good chunk of that micro is you summoning a bird and it just does what it does. And when you summon a boar, you don't really have to give that much of a shit. Like, you need it to not die, but, like... That's kind of true for most things in life, to be completely honest. Unless you find a spider in your house, in which case that thing needs to die. What was I talking? Okay, so, like, the boars, having to micro them is kind of annoying, and then you usually go Helm the Dominator, which adds more micro to it. But as far as micro heroes go, because PL is not a micro hero, he really isn't... He's probably one of the easier micro heroes in the game, and I'd argue he's one of the easiest Zoo characters in the game. And he's also, like, the Primarch of Zoo, so it makes sense. Specialty required, he's not that hard. Bloodseeker. Is he GG easy? I kind of think he is. Well, the only thing that makes me want to put him in I understand it now is because you will get in situations where, like, your opponents are low and you're not sure if you need to go in or not. Because you know that if you get that kill, you're going to get a ton of healing off of Thirst. But if you don't get that kill, then you die. Or if you just don't get that kill fast enough, you die. So there are some, like, weird teamfight situations where you're not sure if you need to go in or not. But that, to me, is, like, also a trait that every other hero has. It's just amplified on Bloodseeker. So I'm going to put him on GG easy. Get it? Amplified, because it's best Maelstrom carrier in the game. Bounty Hunter is probably just I understand it now. Is he GG easy? No. I'm trying to think of like the depth. There is tech on this hero. There's the shuriken bounce thing where you throw it behind someone and it bounces through whatever, and then it bounces back onto them as track and deals a bajillion damage. But like that's another one of like, you know, the Bane nightmare dodge things. Like you don't need to have that in order to play the hero effectively. So I think he's in... What am I talking about? He's in GG easy. You hit track on people and you walk around and you Juggernaut them in lane. He's not hard. So Brewmaster is a hero that I constantly refer to as like for brain dead morons, but like he's not. That is literally just me being salty because of his level 6 power spike. He's genuinely difficult. He's one of the hardest offlaners in the game to play because you need micro skills, and then that micro skill, like with Arc Warden, for example, you have 2 guys and you're controlling them for the majority of the game, and they both have spells, but they're the same spells. Brewmaster has 4 guys, and they're very different spells with very different applications. And some of them are weird, like the Dispel on the Storm Bruling and Tornado are like, those are very weird effects. You could say that the Tornado is really just a really long Yule's, which makes sense, but you can also Dispel it yourself, which means that you can mess it up. And that's just on 1 unit. Like, you also have 3 other units. The Fire one is very straightforward, and I guess the Rock one is also mostly straightforward. The Void one is weird. But just having to manage that many different cooldowns spread across that many different units, and then if they die, you die, but like they don't die. There is like a threat to it. There is a chance to really mess up. So I'm going to put him in genuinely difficult. But that's really only true when he has his ulti active. Until then, he is brain dead. Brain dead as hell. Brewmaster players are cool guys. I like them. Bristleback is probably, I understand it now. He's another hero kind of similar to Batrider, where you just have to figure out how the quill stacks work and try to figure out the situations where it's really important to like use quill stacks versus not. The first game you play Bristleback, you will run out of all of your mana in the very first wave, and you'll be like, what? Why aren't they dead? That's a lesson you need to learn by playing him a single time. He's got some finesse, though. He's a weird hero. He ultimately isn't that complex, though, and he's another hero that you could explain very easily. It's just that his quill mechanics and like the fact that multiple of his abilities stack is very weird. You compare that he's like Axe, but he's got multiple stacking things. I guess Axe has stacking Battle Hunger, but you don't have to buy Shard. You should. Broodmother is... Ooh, is she genuine? I'm gonna put her in Galaxy Brain. But this is the first Galaxy Brain, but this is mostly because of like the Spiderlings and what they do to the macro game, right? If you're playing her as a dedicated pause 1 right clicker, she's not that hard. She's really like, she's very straightforward and like simple core to play relatively until you get to the Spiderlings part. So many heroes in this list are going to go up because of their weird macro mechanics. Broodmother has one of the weirdest macro mechanics in the entire game in the form of webs, which are extremely strong. Being able to carve out a part of the map and be like, this is my domain, you can't go here, is a very interesting thing. Not a lot of heroes can do that. Broodmother, Venomancer, I think that's it. I can't immediately think of, I guess, Disruptor for a brief period of time. And what that does to her farming patterns, what that does to her lane pressure, her internal objectives, right, like what she wants to do, it conflicts a lot with the standard Dota play patterns. And then you have the spider micro. Because the spider micro is, you don't just have to worry about like moving the spiders around. Usually you're just using them to hit one thing. It's not that difficult. You can hold down control and unified orders, like for the majority of your micro. But you have to keep the spiders up. You have to use your ultimate, inject things, they pop out, you make new spiders, and you need to keep that train going, because if that train slows down, it's weird. Then you really are just playing a brain-dead right-click hero thanks to Insatiable Hunger. Overall, she is in Galaxy Brain, but it's not because of the spider micro too much, it's more because of the macro stuff. I think I said it was because of the spider micro earlier, but that guy was an idiot. I don't know what he was talking about. Her micro is just so weird that she is going to go in Galaxy Brain. She has a lot of skills that are completely unique to her and no other heroes. Centaur Warrunner is GG easy. Very simple, so much HP. He's another hero that kind of plays himself because of return. No matter what, your tanking will be impactful because of return. Will it have a huge impact? Oh, it's retaliated right now, right? Why did they change it? Whatever. I used to always think of the move Return from Pokemon, which is a very different thing. All of his abilities are pretty simple. You big steppy, you hit your W. The only kind of weird thing is like knowing when to use his ultimate, which means you have to look at the map. But also, if you're playing in a 5-stack situation, people will just yell. And you can also just let them die if you want, and then use it to like run at people after you blink in. So there's usage even if you want to be a moron on Centaur. So he is GG easy. This is a very satisfying staircase that the chart has formed so far. I don't expect the distribution to be this pretty going forward. CK is probably also GG easy. So he does make the illusions, but the thing about the illusions is when you hit your W, all the illusions show up and wail on whatever you're trying to hit. So the micro for CK is like not actually micro at all. It's just not micro. It's like PL isn't a micro hero, CK also isn't a micro hero for very similar reasons. We'll talk about those later. The only like hard part of playing CK is like, I guess armlet toggling. Like you have to toggle armlet, but like boo-hoo. And also you have your crit to heal, so like you can also just not toggle armlet, starting fairly early on for most heroes. Chen is Galaxy Brain, for sure. Many of the same reasons that Brewmaster is so high up is part of why Chen goes in Galaxy Brain. He has a ton of different units, all of them do very different things. You need to have extremely in-depth knowledge of the jungle, and it's RNG dependent. So Brewmaster is always going to have the same abilities whenever he hits ulti. Chen is not always going to have access to the same abilities, and he needs to think very carefully. Not only about which ones he gets from the jungle, but also about how and when to use them. Now, you can do cheese shit as Chen, where you get like, what's the old joke where you get like 4 centaurs and you just chain stun people? Like, and that's very funny. You can do that if you want. But the jungle creeps have become so complex after that one update where they like reworked the entire jungle that there are a lot of factors to consider when you're playing as a Chen. The Hellbearers are quite interesting because they give buffs when they die in an AoE around, I guess, their corpse. They are no longer on this plane of existence, but their corpse sure is, and their corpse invigorates people. So, and that's just one example. And then there's like all sorts of really wonky play patterns you can do because you basically have Helms of the Dominator from level 1, or I guess level 2 onwards. So you can grab, what's the thing where you grab like a satyr? Is it the Mind Stealer, the one that burns mana or purges? And you just throw it on the mid lane. You just micro it over to the mid lane and use that shit off cooldown. And you're not leeching XP, and your pause 2 is instantly winning the lane because of that. And that's like one weird instance of a thing that Chen can do. So you need to learn a ton of skills that no other hero really has to learn. And then on top of that, well, if you're like a Doom, you have to learn what jungle creeps do. But you don't have to worry about several of them at the same time, and it's only locked behind a layer of RNG until you get the one you want, and then you don't care. But Chen has to like continue rolling the jungle gacha for the entire game. And then his micro is difficult, and his abilities are weird. I haven't even talked about anything other than Holy Persuasion yet, but the rest of his abilities are also very strange. Hand of God is weird. Hand of God is very weird. Yeah, Chen is in Galaxy Brain. Penitence is also weird. Clinkz is probably an I understand it now. The hard part on him is item theory. Because there's a bunch of different items that you can go on Clinkz to accomplish a bunch of different goals. You can be a split pusher, you can be like an assassin, you can be a team fighter with like the ags and all that stuff. There's a lot of really wacky things you can do with Clinkz as long as you know the item build that enables you to play in that way. And then no matter what it is, like split pushing is a difficult thing to do effectively. Like split pushing to win the game is hard. Picking people off can be difficult because it's really hard to justify a nullifier on him. There's a lot of like really weird interactions with Clinkz as well. Like, I'm struggling to think of them, but I'm sure they exist. He's going to go and I understand it now, but he's not that complicated, but his item theory is weird, and so that's going to put him up there. Clockwerk has a wonky skill shot for his ultimate, and if he misses it, it feels like shit. Lane matchups are also an important thing for him to know. He's going to go and I understand it now, but a big part of this is actually lane matchups and how you need to play. Because if you're up against a dual range core, or not a dual range core, but a dual ranged side lane, and you can't get in on them, then you really need to you need to be tricky. And you need to play like the standard support fair very well to justify you existing if you're playing as a Clockwerk and you can't do Clockwerk things. Also, you have the weird, so you have skill shots on your ulti, but you also have hitting the cogs, which can push people around and burn their mana and deal a ridiculous amount of damage. So there are multiple reasons why Clockwerk is a little bit trickier than your average support, but he's also, you know, you hit battery salt and you A-click them, and that's pretty much it. Crystal Maiden. Her difficulty really just comes from the fact that she is very squishy, which I don't think is enough to put it in understanding now, because someone can just tell you you are very squishy and you understand that immediately. Like, that isn't something that you have to experience to know. She can be difficult. She has some depth to her, and then there's like some funky stuff you can do with like Ags and Shard combo. But on balance, it's like, you're fine. Darkseer is a weirdo, but like his... If he is, and I understand it now, well, he has a lot of weird potential, but a lot of playing Darkseer, like in the lane, for example, it's like you put Ion Shell on creeps, and that's it. There you go. The mountain of text that's on it is like, you don't give a shit about that. It's very simple and straightforward. And then Vacuum is like kind of wonky because it doesn't have a clear indication of how big it is when you cast it, unless you're using the like non-quick cast stuff. So he's gonna go and I understand it now, because like once you get a feel for how Vacuum works, it's really just a matter of like, okay, how do I use all my spells to their maximum potential, which is true for every other hero. He probably has it a little bit more because he doesn't have the same like cohesiveness of an internal combo as many other characters. But he's going to go and I understand it now. He's not that difficult. Dark Willow has some weird, like her spells are all kind of funky, you know? Like Bramble Maze is a pretty unique effect. I can't think of another spell that immediately works like Bramble Maze. Terrorize is funky. Bedlam is weird because you have to like, is it clockwise or counterclockwise? I think it's counterclockwise. You have to like rotate around them for max damage. All of her spells are like simple, but they have simple effects, but they're done in very weird roundabout ways. So I think she goes in GG easy. I think she has simple spells. It's just they're all a little weird, but you can read them and like you're good. Like you cast them once and you understand like, oh, that's what that spell does. Okay, cool. Dawnbreaker is probably, I understand it now because of having to watch the map like a hawk and listen to your teammates. Her kit itself is not that weird at all. Like, not even a little bit. But her ultimate and what that does to your team's macro game, or the enemy team's like, not macro game, but just like their ganking potential, is very, you need to show that you're willing to like let that shit rip at a moment's notice in order for them to give a shit about you. Because if you are slow and if you're playing a pub, right, and your carry player is like out having an African safari and they get gone on, but it's a type of gone on that if you show up, you can turn it, and at the very least your carry will live. You need to like hit that shit pronto. By the time that they have opened up voice chat and said, hey, dear Dawnbreaker, can you please use your ultimate on me? They're already dead. So you need to watch the map very carefully and have a really good awareness of how dangerous the map is relative to like where your team is. And that's like a weird skill to develop, especially because it changes a lot based on like what heroes people are playing. If, you don't have to worry so much about your puck getting gone on. I mean, a little bit. But if they have a Ricky, you really do have to care about that. Or if they have like another like silencer like a Bane, for example, you really have to care about that. Because if your Pudge gets Bane ultied, you can cancel the Bane ulti and also save your puck. Did I say Pudge? Whatever. So you need to have some really weird knowledge about how to use her ulti effectively, but like that's it. That's the only difficult part about this character. Dazzle. Dazzle also has kind of weird spells. I'm thinking about Nothal Projection and its various buffs. The thing about the Nothal Projection buffs is like you were going to use those spells anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So I am going to put him in GG easy, just because like it's really just his ulti. You have to use his ulti once or twice to be like, oh, okay, that's how it works. Because it has like the distance, and then you need to make sure you're not like standing in the middle of like a highway when you do it, so you aren't hit by a 2007 Subaru Forester and fly off into the wind. He's GG easy. Death Prophet, some of her spells are unwieldy, but she's also, like, she's so straightforward. Crypt Swarm is, like, one of the smallest spell descriptions in the entire game. Whoa, plague be upon ye. And that's it. It doesn't really do anything else. Her silence is a big circle that silences. Yeah. I don't what else, what word do you expect from the 0? Disruptor's got some finesse, dude. Disruptor has some finesse because you need to time the kinetic field properly, and you need to know like when you can use your ulti, and you need to be good at using glimpse. If you're bad at using glimpse, you'll mess everything up, and China will fall to the Mongols because of your actions. But if you do know how all of that works, it's extremely powerful, and you're rewarded very handsomely for it. Almost as handsome as Disruptor himself. So he's going to go into I understand it now. Doom is also I understand it now. All of his spells are very straightforward, but you need to have knowledge of the jungle and what that does, and you need to know lane matchups. So his jungle knowledge is like not very extent, like nowhere near to the extent of Chen. It's just like you need to know like 3 creeps that you want to eat. Like, oh, I get Big Satyr and I get HP regen if I get the dog, me and the boys hit hard. If I get Croaker, I have a stun. And then if I if I get, what's the orange ogre called? I can't even remember. The one that does like the big wind up. If I get that and I hit someone with it, their soul is yours. So I did that once, by the way. And I remember it every day. It's the last thing I think of before I fall asleep and close my eyes. Doom as I understand it now. Just, Doom the right target. DK is GG-EZ. Probably not the GG-easiest. Well, is he? Maybe. He has an alternate version of his stun when he's in dragon form, but like that's it. And then he's John Dota. He's extremely straightforward. He's the poster boy of the anime for a reason. If you're a first-time Dota player and for some reason your friends aren't bullying you into playing Pause 5, you're going to pick DK, regardless of what else you're playing. Drow Ranger is like... Drow, I think, is GG-EZ as well, but like is harder than DK because some of her spells have like weird proclivities. Like getting close in order to cancel marksmanship arrows, and then also knowing that marksmanship arrows don't miss. Like you can make goofy ass build mistakes. Like we've all seen it. Like a Drow Ranger builds an MKB and it's like, bro, you could have bought a shard. So there's like room to make mistakes because you don't understand the full extent of Drow's spells. But like even if you like a Drow with an MKB is like still a Drow, Like an MKB isn't even that terrible of an item to buy on her. It's just extremely redundant with other parts of her kit. So she's going to go in GG-EZ. She's sort of the ranged DK, but I do love her. I enjoy playing Drow. Big Bumbaclot smacks on the offlaner. Earth Spirit. So this is actually the hero that kind of got me thinking about making a tier list like this. I am not an Earth Spirit player, and he probably won't be getting a PowerPoint. But I don't quite think he's Galaxy Brain. I'm going to put him in genuinely difficult, and here's why. A lot of people think that Earth Spirit's difficulty comes down to his basic abilities. This is not true. All of Earth Spirit's shtick can basically be boiled down to like push, pull, rolling boulder. That's it. Like that's all he has. And then magnetize is like, you don't even need to know what magnetize is. Like, it's just like, oh, if I do this near my statues and enemy heroes, they get hurt. Cool. You can refresh it if you want, sure. But who cares? That's not important. The thing that makes Earth Spirit actually genuinely difficult is resource management. You have a limited number of stone remnants that you can put down, and literally all of them have an impact on the things that you do in the lane. And then they also have an impact on your ulti, and then they also have an impact on your mobility. And then on top of that, you have a pretty good HP pool as Earth Spirit, especially if you like buy a bracer or two, right? It's difficult for them to burst you with that just because you have like great stack gain and good starting stats. But your mana, and that's where things get a little bit harder. His mana costs are like not that terrible, but you need to cast like multiple spells at one time in order to get anything done. So there is, and like rolling boulder is funky. It's the resource management that makes him difficult. A lot of people will point to like the laning phase roaming stuff as like, oh, actually Earth Spirit is difficult because like Jerax is able to, and like Crit and like those guys are able to make ganks that my ancient teammates cannot do. And it's like, yeah, but like there's a lot of other heroes that have that same, like roaming is hard. It is a difficult thing to do anyway. Doing it with Earth Spirit, you're doing it with a difficult hero, sure, but like you could be doing a lot of those same moves with like a Wind Ranger, like, or at least getting the same results. So he is a genuinely difficult character. I do not think he's in Galaxy Brain though. And a lot of that difficulty doesn't stem from his abilities. It just stems from like some grief potential because like moving, right? And then also resource management is like the real difficult part of him. It's not actually what his abilities are and what they do. It's very simple. There you go. He's genuinely difficult, though. He's in the second highest tier for a good reason. Earthshaker, you can get your blink clipped and hit the R key, and then your team is mad. Is he... Like, the current incarnation of him with Slugger, I think, is, because you need to understand that in order to, like, win the lane well, is you need to, like, do weird TA, Psyblade type shit in order to make the Slugger units run into your opponents and deal damage to them quite a bit throughout the lane. But the rest of his kit is, like, very simple, and then I guess you can mess up Fissure. So you need to understand that Fissure has a cast time. But, like, no matter how many times you play Earthshaker, you will mess it up anyway. So it's fine, I guess. He's going to go and I understand it now. So Elder Titan is a hero who is very strange, both in theory and in practice. You read his abilities and you don't fully understand what they mean, especially Natural Order, because, like, it's intertwined so much with his Astral Spirit. But even when you do understand all of those abilities, he's also extremely awkward to play. He's going to go in specialty required. He's a very strange hero with a lot of very strange things. And being awkward in pretty much every way that a hero can be awkward means that you do need to specialize in him. At least a little bit. You don't need to be like an ET spammer, though there are many of them. You just need to know how to put everything in practice in order to make the hero function. Ember Spirit is not as hard as you think. Like, if you think Ember Spirit is like a super difficult hero, just like play him. He's not that hard. He makes a lot of sense. The hardest part about him is mana management, because he runs out of mana instantly because pro players are too good. So Valve had to do that and add a bunch of cast points. But, like, at the same time, there are a lot of tips and tricks with him, and then there's a lot of different build ideas. I mean, usually there's a lot of different build ideas until a patch gets, like, 2 months old, and then if Ember is playable, which he isn't always playable, there's usually 1 or maybe 2 builds that you can go on him. He's gonna go in specialty required because he's a spirit, but, like, trust me, he's not that hard. Enchantress. So, she has a lot of the same things going for her, like Chen, where you need to understand a lot of jungle creeps and you have to deal with the RNG. But she also has, like, the most brain-dead backup plan in the game of just, like, hitting impetus on you over and over again. I think, like, she's weird because if you are playing Enchantress the way that she's supposed to be, she's probably genuinely difficult. Like, if you're playing as her as, like, a core with the Aghanim's Scepter, I mean, until you get that axe, she's probably genuinely difficult. After that, she's GG, because that's what she's typing in chat. But the impetus build and, like, the right-click focus version of Enchantress is, like, it's not even. It's GG. You hit impetus and then you giggle, like, oh, whenever they get hit by it. I think she shakes out to being, like, specialty required, but this is really only true for, like, it's really just true if you're doing Enchantress with enchant and, like, focusing on the zoo part of her instead of I understand it now, which would be for the impetus version, or GGEZ for the impetus version. I mean, the impetus version still does eventually use enchant, but they just use it as a slow. They don't use it to do micro. If they wanted to do micro, they would have picked literally anyone else. The courier might be difficult for those guys. Enigma is mostly... you do need to, like, kind of be an Enigma player. Knowing your matchups, knowing the best way to use your ultimate, how to deal with the myriad counters that exist for you is difficult. There's, like, a punishing part of Black Hole where if you don't do it well, everyone thinks you're an idiot, including yourself. So he's going to go in specialty required because, like, I'm thinking about, like, myself. If I'm queuing up for role queue games and I get off lane, no part of me would be like, oh, it's a good Enigma game, I'll pick that. No, my first thought is, like, I don't play Enigma. I don't even think about him. So I do think you need some specialty to him. Also, he's got some weird build ideas these days. I almost just called him Chronosphere. Faceless Void. I think the thing that makes you a good Faceless Void is getting those stuffed crust Chronos, where it's like 3 heroes, but they're all in the rim. So, like, your melee heroes can wail on them, and that's a very difficult thing to do. And there's the grief potential is going to put him in specialty required. A lot of carry players will pick him and just use Chronosphere as if it is a Shadow Shaman using Shackles, where it's just like, okay, I will stun them, so I may hit them. And you can do that. You can get away with that for a lot. But to really play Faceless Void, like, as intended, not to the ultimate skill ceiling, we can't all be Universe, But to play him and really get the most out of him, he does require a certain degree of specialty. So he's going to go here. Grimstroke. He's got some weirdness. His Q is like a skill shot. He's going to go on Iron Standard now. Is it still tied to the facet, manually activating Inkswell? Regardless, he's still going to be in this tier, but like that could be a thing. And then also you have his Inkstroke being a weird ability, and then you can curve it if you go that one facet as well, which is a very funny thing to see. And then his ultimate, you need to like have good timing on it. You need to buy an Aether Lens. That's a difficult thing to justify as a pause 4 or 5, especially as your first item. But like there's some weird hoops you have to jump through and some really strong reading comprehension. You need to have a brain to play this hero. But all of his abilities, once you use them a couple times, you're like, okay, now I understand it. It's not that hard. Which is the picture-perfect definition of I understand it now. Gyro. He's also I understand. Is he? I'm reading this as a core gyro, and it's real. Like, there's a lot of things that you have to do in order to make core gyro work that don't really apply to a lot of other heroes because of Flat Cannon being so weird. I'm really thinking about his farming pattern. Because I talked earlier about, like, a lot of heroes need to understand, like, okay, you can hit multiple camps at the same time. Gyro has a lot of ones that are very specific to him that no other hero can really take advantage of, like not even Medusa. So I'm going to put him in I understand it now, but this is mostly because his ulti is whack as shit, and no matter how many times you cast it, you're never going to do it right. Casting, they need to revert Gyro ulti, man. It's ridiculous to me. The current version of it feels like shit. The final one takes like literally like 5-6 seconds to come down. Who's getting hit by that? You could tank a full Shackles and still get out if you're not right in the middle. It's kind of ridiculous. I understand it now. Hoodwink is, I mean, multi-skill shots. We're going to put her in I understand it now, but she's not hard. Hitting her ultimate is like probably the most difficult thing just because it has such a weird, like the turning is weird. You need them to be a certain distance away in order to like make it feasible to react to their movements. You have, that's a skill shot, and then Bushwhack is also a skill shot. We're going to put her here. And then her shard is funky too. Hunter's Boomerang, I think is what it is. Or Boomerang Mark. Hunter Mark Boomerang. It's some combination of those three words. Huskar is like pretty tough. The thing about Huskar is there's a lot of heroes where you have to judge like, can I go in? You know, that's a question that every hero has to ask. Any kind of bruiser, brawler, hero, melee or range has to ask. But Huskar is like, you need to know your limits so well as this hero. You really need a really good understanding of if I engage with this, how's it going to shake out? But it's assisted by you having such an easy lane. I mean, you win like every matchup, man. I'm going to put him in specialty required because of that kind of unique trait. And then there's some counter picks that are absolutely brutal that you need to learn how to play into. So he's going to be in specialty required, but he's like not, he might be on the lower end of these kinds of heroes. Invoker is in Galaxy Brain. So Invoker, him being here is primarily just due to the fact that he has such a unique input system. Mechanically, he is quite difficult. His macro and like the ideas that kind of go into it aren't that hard. He's kind of just like a tempo mid laner. There's a lot of other mid laners that play like him, but having such a specialized and unique way of getting your spells out, first off, that's difficult. Second off is the fact that you have 9 spells, 10, and like they're all kind of you know? Like none of his spells are that good. So, but they all have a very specific purpose. So you need to recognize the situations where each one is good and then use the weird mechanical input to get those spells. And you kind of need to plan it ahead of time because of the invoker or the invoke cooldown. And then I guess your resource management isn't that hard, but you can run out of mana on this hero and it feels like shit when you do. So he does go in Galaxy Brain almost entirely just due to his mechanical complexity for how to summon his spells and the breadth of his kit. He's kind of like a Brewmaster in ulti minus the micro part. And even then you have Forge Spirits, which is like a smidgen of micro. Not much, a smidgen. A smidgen. IO. Yeah, IO players overstate the difficulty of this character quite a bit. The hardest part of IO is like really just using your ultimate very effectively. Outside of that, oh, and the fact that you have to be like constantly like locked in. A lot of heroes that are like this in video games, like I'm thinking Yuumi in League. If you don't know, League's like version of IO is like a cat who hangs out in your butthole. and like they don't move. They're literally like attached to your character. Like imagine if Io just like sunk into the earth and hung out at your feet. That is what Yuumi does. And so you don't have to worry about that. So you can kind of just like play her with one hand if you want. It's a cat, by the way, before you get any ideas. Io, however, you need to constantly try to predict or communicate with the core that you're attached to for their movement. You need to be like lockstep with them in terms of their farming pattern. You need to right-click the camps that they're right-clicking, but you can't take any last hits. And then you also need to be like drawing aggro and providing vision of other creep camps depending on who they are and what they're doing. And then some heroes really care about the regen. Some heroes like don't at all. So there's a lot of... I'm going to put him in like... But then you also have the ultimate, and it's really important to use the ultimate in an effective way. I think he like barely squeaks into genuinely difficult, but he's not as hard as a lot of IO players will say he is. People pretend like he's up here. He's not. Alphabetical order. He's genuinely difficult though, because of how locked in you have to be, and you're reliant on a random human being. Which, if you're playing solo queue, like you're literally like rolling the dice on who you're going to be playing IO for, which is a insane thing to do. I could never be a solo queue IO player. You guys are way too strong. Mentally, Jakiro is pretty GG easy. You need to learn how to hit Ice Path, but that's it. And that's something that like you miss it twice and you're like, oh, okay, there's a delay. That's it. There's not much to say here. Juggernaut is, I understand it now. You kind of need to play a couple, like you need to play Juggernaut shit in order to understand what he does, but the shitty part of playing Juggernaut is over in like a game or two. Maybe 2 or 3. Knowing when to use spin in lane, understanding how to use it in team fights later on, recognizing situations for Omni Slash, and then there's the micro for the healing ward. That is what's actually going to put it up, and I understand it now. But he's got like a bit of a higher ceiling, I think, than some of the other heroes here. You can be a pretty good jug player. You can also be really bad. Coddle has a weird kit, and Illuminate is very clunky to use, and his ultimate is strange. But like the rest of his kit is like just like random good stuff spells. He's really not that weird. If you're playing the recall version of him, he's probably a little bit more difficult, but Solar Bind is like you just throw it on, it's just a slow. There's really not that, like you don't have to care about the increased magic vulnerability. You can just throw it on people. I think he's in I Understand It now. Mid Coddle, which I hate, is probably a little bit higher up. But yeah, he's there. Kez, rating the difficulty of Kez. He's one of these. He's not Galaxy Brain. The Melee Invoker. Bitch, he's an Agi hero. He's one of these two. I'm gonna put him in specialty required because I'm putting him there because the benefits of a lot of his stuff is real. Like he is rewarded so well for doing a lot of different things. Raptor Dance is that is a stupid ability. Raptor Dance is so strong. I can't believe it's in the game. Now I gotta talk like an anime character because that's what he does, and I hate him for that. I'm gonna put him in specialty required. I couldn't tell you a whole lot why. He might be in genuinely difficult, but I'm putting him here just because the reward. Like think about the reward for like Earth Spirit is like you relocate someone and you deal some damage, which could be a kill. But Raptor Dance is like, you get a piece of invulnerability, short charge time, you deal a metric shitload of pure damage to several heroes at the same time, and you also heal yourself to full. So just the strength of his rewards are going to put him in specialty required. That and like you have Invis as like a get out of jail free card, which I know it isn't actually a get out of jail free card, but it feels like it. You have really strong mobility tools, your right clicks are very good for multiple different reasons depending on which form you're in. His rewards are so high that I'm going to put him in specialty required rather than genuinely difficult. But you can fight me. You can shoot me with a gun if you disagree. Kunkka, a part of me is like specialty required. He's on the lower end, I think. He would go into I Understand It now just because like you need to learn like X marks the spot into torrent timing. And it doesn't have to be that tight, you know? You'll get people who... You know, if their blink is off cooldown, they'll wait, react to getting X to blink out, or there's a trick where you like spam the force staff button and click wherever you are because you maintain where you're facing. So if you just keep clicking force staff in the spot where you get X'd, you will force staff yourself out as soon as you get X'd. So there are situations where the timing needs to be tight, and like Ghost Ship is a weird ability to aim. He has the same qualities as I Understand It now, but like amped up to 11. So he's going to go in specialty required. And then you get attacker Kunkka, where you're killing bounty hunters that don't exist. You're murdering the schizo bounty hunters that live in your brain, which is a very cool thing to see. I also hate Kunkka, but even that kind of stuff I have to be like, damn son, where'd you find this? LC with the low res portrait. I understand it now. You need to understand good situations to use her W, and you need to play. Is she cheesy? She might be. We're gonna put her here. You can mess up bad on LC. There is grief potential on this hero, which is funny, because you can just give an enemy Medusa like 35 bonus damage or whatever. Or 30, and then, well, no. Because she doesn't get the 5 bonus from being, whatever. The point is, like, she is very simple and straightforward, but there is, like, there's a complexity to her macro game. You need to be watching the map. You need to have an understanding of different matchups, dealing with enemy itemization preemptively. Like, as soon as you smell a Lincoln Sphere, you need to alter your build in order to deal with that as LC. And she's got, not fast fingers, but, like, you have an internal combo that you can also mess up. And, like, even I've played a good amount of LC, and even, like, 1 in 100 times I will, like, forget to pop Blade Mail, and I'm like, oh, shit. So, but that's just me being incompetent. That's not the hero being difficult. She's going to go, and I understand it now because of the macro game and how you have to play around that. Leshrac. Leshrac is kind of similar to Huskar in the sense that you need to know how to go in. I'm going to put him in I understand it now. It's just you need one game as Leshrac to feed and be like, oh, I'm not tanky until X happens, or I'm not tanky until I have Y item. And then you'll learn those as you go. He's a limit testing hero, though, for sure. But he's not as all-in as Huskar. His ult doesn't teleport him right on top of people. He has to buy a Blink Dagger to do it instead. So, and he's got his skill shots done. He's an I understand it now. Lich is GG easy. Lich sort of encapsulates this because all of his spells are like difficult to use properly or difficult to use improperly. You can have bad ultis, but like even if so, you're just using it as like kind of a shitty extra cast of Frostblast. And then you can put your W on the wrong thing. But that's really the only way you can mess up on this hero. He's GG easy. Lifestealer is also GG easy. There is a small amount of complexity that is added by his ultimate being able to infest neutral creeps, especially with Ancients and like Gorestorm, and what that does to his play patterns is like kind of funky. And you have to yell into your mic to remind people that your hero has an ultimate and what it does, because people will forget when you pick this hero, and that's extremely frustrating, but he's GG easy. He's harder than he used to be. He used to be 2 passives. Remember that? I missed that shit. That was beautiful. I remember when Rage gave you bonus movement speed, so whenever you respawned and you were walking to lane or whatever, you would bop it to get there slightly faster. But Valve took that away from us. Lina is, I understand it now. There's like some nuance to her play patterns and how to like best use them that you sort of need to have a game or two under your belt to understand. And then if you're doing the GPK, AGS, refresher stuff, you need some fast fingers. You don't need them the whole match. You only need them for like a second and a half, but you will need those fingers fast. Hit them buttons good. She's an I understand it now. Lion is probably GG easy, but you can feed like crazy if you don't know what you're doing. But like that's kind of true on a lot of other heroes, and Crystal Maiden is in GG easy too. Lion is very straightforward, not difficult. The hardest part is if you're going for like those the Ravage stuns, because the width is like way wider than it appears to be. And you are very handsomely rewarded when you get to later levels and you have a ranged Ravage. Like, what the fuck? Why is that in the game? The 30-degree cone talent, they need to take that shit out immediately. Lone Druid. I'm going to put him in specialty required because you don't have to worry. Like, you see 12 item slots and you think to yourself, oh, wow, I need to learn item theory. I need to know everything about, like, oh, how do I build both of... But, like, no, you don't. You buy boots and you buy 5 iron branches on the hero, and then you just buy, like, pretty much the same items every game as the bear. It's just a matter of, like, when you want to go harpoon. Or if you go harpoon. I guess you don't always go Echo Saber, but you oftentimes do go just the full harpoon later on, because it's nice. He's going to go in specialty required. He is a micro hero, and a fairly intensive micro hero, too. But, like, that's the only difficult part of him. And it's like, oh, you have to keep the bear alive. And it's like, dude, the bear has 1 billion armor and 2 billion health. Like... You gotta have to try to make the bear die. And even then, you're not dead. You can just waddle around and leech XP off of some guy hitting your ancient camps, because you cannot farm them because you have a bunch of sticks and some shoes. Luna is probably GG easy. There's like understanding her ulti targeting is another thing where you just do it once and you're like, oh, okay, I got it. I Understand It Now is supposed to be you need a game. GGEZ is like you need a cast. You just need to use the ability once to be like, oh, that's how it works. So she's pretty darn easy as far as carries go. It's nice. We have this cute little triumvirate of like Drow, DK, Luna over here. I don't know who's going to wind up here. Won't be Medusa, I'll tell you that. Lycan is... I Understand It Now. If you're doing the full-on Zoo version, he might be specialty required, but a lot of the Lycan play that I'm seeing now and historically has just been like right-click / split push Lion. So he's gonna, or Lycan. So he's gonna be an I Understand It Now. You need to know how to use the Wolves in lane pretty well, and you kind of need to read Howl twice to know what it does. One read is not enough, but like that's fine. That's not a big deal. Magnus. Whew, specialty required for sure. Is he genuinely difficult? At the peak, he absolutely is. Like, if you're doing the really crazy, like, the collapse style, and you're building your entire game around your yoinkings, if you're hitting the yoinky splunky, he's probably genuinely difficult, but for the most part, it's just specialty required. Because Skewer is a really wonky relocation ability, you oftentimes have to take risks as this hero in order to use Skewer effectively. They finally made it so that if you get disabled in the middle of Skewer, you stop moving. Thank God. We needed that patch note, like, 8 years ago, but I'm glad we have it now. He's specialty required. RP is a weird ability. There's a lot of like little tips and tricks you can do. He has multiple relocation tools, 3 relocation tools, which is kind of insane. And then he also has Empower, which is a very easy skill to use, but not everything can be difficult. He's in specialty required for sure. Marcy, fucking brain dead hero. Dude, this hero is for monkeys. If we ever taught a monkey how to play Dota, they would pick Marcy. They would not pick Monkey King. They would not. They would pick Marcy. She has like 2 skill shots that like aren't skill shots. Like suplex, you can't pick exactly where they wind up. You need to orient yourself in such a way that they'll wind up behind you. But like if your argument is that that's a skill shot, like shut up. And then the Marcy leap, which is like such a fat AoE stun, and the travel time is so quick that like if you miss it, like you, that's just you being a dummy. That's you being a monkey. You picked Marcy. The problem with this is that the people who pick Marcy are the same people who would miss that stun. So that's the only reason anyone ever misses that stun. You get people who would play Brewmaster on Marcy. Oh my god, they'd hit it every time. Mars. Is Arena... Does Arena is skill shot? You do need a game. You need a game on him for sure. And I have no problem admitting that. That's really all that I have to say about him. Does Arena is a skill shot is a good question to ask, though. Find out more when I do the Mars PowerPoint eventually. Medusa, very highly matchup dependent, has a lot of stuff that's unique to her that you can't immediately think of by reading her abilities. You need to understand how Mana Shield impacts her game and like her regen, and like there's a lot of situations where, you know, there's the classic idea of like, oh, I want a team fight, I will use Earn on my carry, and then they will hit the tower. But like Medusa, you can't do that. And there's a lot of other, like you can't use Shadow Word on Medusa to heal her up after a fight when you're playing as Warlock. She has to sort of sustain herself. There's very few heroes that can give her mana regen to the degree that she needs in order to keep in the fight after a one fight. So there are some like really treacherous macro maneuvers that you can do with Medusa, and you need to know a shitload of matchups. Like, she really is a hero that you need to know a lot of matchups on. I'm going to put her in specialty required. She's just not mechanically difficult. You know, you can Manta dodge shit, but like whatever. That's true for every other hero, or not every, well, yeah. Any hero can buy a Manta, and any hero can Manta dodge Earth Splitter. Good luck with that. Meepo goes in Galaxy Brain. So Meepo is an extensive micro hero. You know this already. The real reason that Meepo goes up here, though, is because of the punishment. Remember, rewards and punishments are a big part of determining how difficult something is. With Meepo, if you make a micro mistake, if you poof a Meepo on top of itself rather than on top of a different Meepo that you wanted to use as an escape option, you die. And with Meepo, if you die, you lose the game. So, like, one micro mistake can literally cost you the entire game, which is terrifying. Like, that's a really scary thing. And that thing that I mentioned earlier with Arc Warden, where you can use that Console Command, like, you can't really do that on Meepo. You can use it for net, but you can't use it for poof, because if the wrong poof is on cooldown, then you're boned. And Meepo has a lot of crutches. The modern version of Meepo is like considerably easier than the old versions. Well, it's not that it's easier. Like his matchup spread is way better now than it used to be. There used to be heroes where like you lose. Sorry. Like they picked Winter Wyvern and you lose. My bad, dude. My bad. But now you have a lot of tools to help with those sorts of situations. So you have Mega Meepo, you have Burrow. So those can all do a lot of work and make Meepo easier. But also the things that counter Meepo, there's more things than ever, and then also those things are more powerful than ever because Meepo is almost universally countered by spells, not right clicks, and spells are more powerful than they've ever been. And again, if you mess up, you die, and if you die, you lose. Which means that every little decision that you make on Meepo could, in theory, you know, maybe it's like some Final Destination shit, but like you mess up one thing on this hero and you instantly lose the game. And like that's really difficult. That's very scary. Meepo is very much so the star of the show when you pick him. And the game is going to depend on how well the Meepo player can play Meepo. And he's not easy to play. Being able to, you know, the things you can do with this hero, the rewards, we can talk about that. You can completely take over and just ruin a game. You can shit on people with this hero if you really know what you're doing and you're in a good matchup and they aren't playing in the right way. You instantly win the game. But you can do that on a lot of other heroes without that insane amount of risk. Like you can do that on Arc Warden. But if your clone dies, if your micro target dies, it's fine. They get some gold, but like, oh well. He's going to come back once the spell's off cooldown. But with Meepo, you die and lose the game. So the degree of punishment for Meepo is what's going to put him up here in Galaxy Brand. The rewards are sweet. The grapes are quite sweet, but the roots are knotted and gnarled, and you can trip over them and break your ankle and die. Galaxy Brand. Mirana, just buy a Rod of Atos, bro. You don't gotta hit the arrows. Just buy a Rod of Atos. Just, you know, put the training wheels on your bike. You're a 40-year-old man. Just put training wheels on your bicycle. Arrows are difficult. That's the only difficult thing about her, though. And then, like, you miss an arrow, no one cares. We can talk about the punishments. If you miss, you can miss like 15 arrows in a row and like no one will give a shit at all. No one on your team will be like, this Mirana can't hit her arrows. No. Like that's the sort of criticism that's pretty much only reserved for Pudge. Well, there's other skill shots that if you miss them enough times in a row, people will be like, dude, what is your problem? But Mirana is not one of those heroes. The most difficult thing about her has a very high reward and like a relatively low opportunity cost, and worst case scenario, you can use it to hit red Hellbears. Monkey King is, I understand it now. He's another like hero where you kind of have to know your limits when it comes to Jingu mastery and like what you can get away with. But genuinely, the hardest part about Monkey King is like trying to find your hero in the middle of your ultimate. That and like, I guess his shard is weird because it gives you a weird funky mobility option. And then Tree Dance has some like weird interactions. You just have to see it in practice though. Like Monkey King, once you see it, it's like, okay, all of this makes perfect sense. But reading his abilities can be a little bit confusing. And then you have the limit testing from Jingu. So he's in I understand it now. He's not that difficult. He's pretty easy. And then if you're in a melee matchup where you can kind of just run at them, like they're having the worst game of their life and like you don't care. Morphling is genuinely difficult. Part of me wants to put him in Galaxy Brain. Is he Galaxy Brain? I don't think he would not look like this. Does not look right. This is a very, first off, worst blunt rotation of your goddamn life, dude. Meepo's smoking it all before it even gets to you. He's genuinely difficult because you need to have knowledge of everyone else in the game. And wow, oh man, is he Galaxy Brain? He is. I'm going to defend this decision by saying that you need to have an understanding of every other basic ability in the game and how it applies to you as a Morphling player. So knowing the abilities is not enough. You need to know if it's worth you turning into them. And there's some that are really obvious. Like if you're up against a Gyrocopter, you copy him and you flat cannon, and then you turn back into your guy. So you need to know all of those. But there's other ones like X marks the spot, right? Because you can do an X torrent combo as Morphling, but you need to know how to do that before you even bothered picking Morphling in the first place. And then it's not guaranteed that you're going to be going up against a bunch of heroes that have abilities that you know how to use. There's a lot of internal combos in Dota that Morphling can take advantage of, but it's very difficult. And he needs to know how to do those internal combos. Like, good lord, imagine you copy a Kez. There are very difficult situations for Morphling, and that's just with Morph. Because he also has the ability to bring himself down to 2 HP and risk it all by digging up a kobold, and it kills you while you're in the middle of a tournament where you're trying to win so you can get money. Shout out Crystallis. I was never a Crystallis doubter. Overall, Morphling has not one, but two extremely skill-testing mechanics, and I think that pushes him into Galaxy Brain because of the breadth of one of them being Morph and what it does to his game plan. And that's sort of... The hero isn't complete without it, so you need to know how to morph and what to morph into and how to use those spells in the enemy heroes. So he's going to go in Galaxy Brain. Rubik will not be up here, by the way. Morta... She's got a skill shot, and her ulti is funny. She's and I understand it now. I don't have much to say about this. Yeah, there you go. Naga Siren is probably specialty required, primarily due to the grief potential of her ultimate, and then you also have micro to deal with, and then you also have like a really awkward stun. Well, it's not the stun that's awkward, it's the reel in part. It's a very weird thing to have an ability that is a two-part ability, but they're both actives, and one is tied to the other. And then those are kind of all traits that you need to worry about as both a core and a support. And then if you're playing as a carry Naga Siren, you also need a very in-depth understanding of the macro and how to interact with it in order to buy time for you to become a Naga Siren. Because you don't start the game as a Naga Siren. You start the game as a little pooper. But you end the game as a motherfucking Naga Siren. So it's important for you to have a good understanding of all of those things. She is like borderline genuinely difficult. Is she genuinely difficult? Let me think. Vote now on your phones. She's going to stay in specialty required, but if you put her in genuinely difficult on your own tier list, I would not put you to the sword for doing that. Nature's Prophet is really just... I understand it now. I understand it now. He's got weird macro. You need to understand how to rat. Saying he has like micro issues too is like kind of bullshit because the treants are like nothing. There's such a nothing ability these days. You throw them at a creep wave and then you walk away and that's it. And then maybe they hit the tower a couple times and they tank, but like that's it. You can't really call this a micro hero. And then the bulk of his game plan is just like ooga booga me hit you. So it's not that difficult. But his ulti also requires you to cast it a couple times for you to understand what the fuck is going on. And then your teammates get mad because you stole their creep camp that they've been farming for the last 8 seconds. I'm teammate, by the way. Necrophos is... Is he GG easy? He might be. He's like another... Your W is a Ghost Scepter. Your Q is an AoE Drain Heal. Your E is a passive that even you won't even know what it's doing, and then your ulti is like if they're below half health, you use it on them and they die. He's a very laconic, or a hero that could be expressed as laconic. Could be expressed laconically. What does that word mean? GG easy for Necrophos, but he's kind of on the higher end of GG easy. Night Stalker is probably also... Well, you have the time management and cooldown management, but like, boo-hoo, every other hero does too. GG easy. We're going to put him here. It's just he has the day-night mechanic. But, like, Night Stalker is literally in his name. So it doesn't take you very long to figure that shit out. Nyx Assassin, I do genuinely think is, like, specialty required. Because you're a shit laner, you need to understand how to do the most with the least when it comes to the lane. When I play offlane and I have a Nyx Assassin as my +4, I'm like, oh god, we're going to lose the lane. And this guy better make up for it later on. And sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. Specialty required because... he has like a lot of really, like his game plan is really disjointed if you think about it. Because like part of Nyx Assassin is you want to be this invis, blow you up out of nowhere boogeyman, right? And the enemy team has to play around that very cleverly. But the other part of Nyx is you kind of want to be like a behind the scenes team fight adjuster, right? You could go Dagon, or you could go Aghanim Scepter, or you could go both. Oftentimes that's what winds up happening because the Nyx game plan of tracking people down and killing people ends once they start putting a lot of sentries down, at least in like higher-ish ranked matchmaking. People understand how to deal with the Nyx eventually. And then how does the hero become a threat? And so you need to understand like both parts of that game plan and idea, and then you also need to have a really good understanding of the laning phase if you don't plan on losing every lane immediately as soon as you pick this hero in the draft screen. So I'm going to put him in specialty required. Ogre is GG easy. Roll Q All-Star. All of his... The interesting part of his kit literally happens without any intervention from you whatsoever. He is a hero that you could roleplay as. Once the monkeys get bored of playing Marcy or they run out of Roll Q tokens, they will instead be playing Ogre Magi. Omni Knight is really just a matter of figuring out the rules for casting his ulti. It's kind of weird. It applies the buff in an AoE, but you can leave the AoE and it still attaches to you, but you can't go into the AoE, which is kind of weird. I don't know why that strikes me as so strange. I feel like there are other spells that are like that, but I can never think of any. Oracle is similar to Elder Titan in that you read his abilities and you're like, what do these do? And then you use them in the game and you're like, what did I do? So, you know, he's nowhere near. Back in the day, I'd put him up here in genuinely difficult. But nowadays, you can't grief the shit out of your Sven by not letting him right-click for 5 seconds while he's like ulted and BKB'd. So I'm going to put him in specialty required just because you do need to have a pretty good understanding of not only of what the hell your spells actually do, but also the effective way to use them. And then your ultimate is like, one of the hardest things about playing Oracle is when you ult someone, convincing them to continue fighting instead of running away. That's one of the hardest parts about playing Oracle, is communicating what the fuck your ulti does. Well, not what it does, but how your teammates should play around it. Specialty required. OD is pretty easy. I think he's also going to go in GG easy. Extremely simple kit. If you strip away all the flowery language that's attached to his abilities for no goddamn reason, it's just like, hit hard, gay baby jail, you have infinite mana, AoE magical nuke. That's it. Like, he's not a complex hero at all. GG easy. Maybe it'll take you one game to really understand what makes him fucked up, but like, you know, whatever. Pangolier, he's kind of a funky one. He's got some, you know, you have vector targeting and you also have steering targeting, which is kind of funky. Having two weird types of unit controls on one hero is like a fairly uncommon thing. At least I like to think. I think he's in I Understand It now, but really good Pango play. And then, but you need to know mid matchups as a melee hero. But you're a melee hero with an amazing right click and really good spells, and you have rune control. I think he's in I Understand It now, but like his skill ceiling is very high. But just getting to the point where you can play him competently is like a game or two, and you have it figured out. PA. Oh, we almost have PL. What should we have left? This is going faster than I thought. PA is probably, I Understand It now. It's really just a matter of determining your timings, because the hero farms incredibly quickly with a Battle Fury, and what she does is like Q, W, hit them until they die. You know? It's not that bad. But your E is like a weird ability, and it takes a little bit for you to understand what the hell to do with it. But even if you don't really know, it can just be like, you know, your support made like a double ancient stack. You pop that and then you hit it. And that's all the ability has to be. It doesn't have to be this like weird skulking around disjoint tool that it could potentially be. It can also just be, let me hit ancients and they don't get to hit me back. So she's in I Understand It now. But she's got a little bit, you know, she's like Jug, where it's like she's pretty easy to understand after a game or two. But there is, if you really want to get good at them, you're going to have to learn some weird things. Yeah, I expected this to be kind of the bulk. I Understand It now is probably going to be the modal hero. And then these two, there's actually, it's funny to me that there's more in Galaxy Brain than in Genuinely Difficult, but that's how it works out. That's how it works out. Phantom Lancer is I Understand It now. Some PL players will look you in the eye and say, yeah, I play micro while they play this hero. And let me tell you, as someone who has played a lot of Phantom Lancer, he is not a micro hero. Oh, look, I hit W, and then I hit the tab button, and I juked them. Look, they cast stun on my elude. Shut up, dude. Literally, shut up. It's like calling Anti-Mage a micro hero because he buys Manta. He's not a micro hero. Like, technically, yes, but just hold down control. You could, like, tape your control button down to your keyboard, and he would it'd be 90% the same hero. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. But PL players are like very staunchly defensive about like, no, my hero is difficult. Here, let me show you. And then they like will show you a compilation of them getting themselves killed. And they're like, look. Because you can also do, I mean, the reward for being a good PL player is nuts. You know, just learning PL, you can cheese games out like crazy because Mjolnir isn't what it used to be when it comes to dealing with you. And if they don't have any like really good way of handling all of your illusions, then you kind of just win the game in the draft screen. You know, as long as not everyone shits their pants in the laning phase, which can happen. Phoenix is a specialty required hero. The idea behind a specialty required hero is they need to have either really weird mechanics, intense grief potential, or some other factor that means that they need to be a little bit higher up, like AM's macro game or like Magnus's Yoinky Spoinky. Phoenix has multiple really weird abilities that kind of have mechanics that are entirely unique to them. And some of them are small, right? Like Fire Spirits. You cast it, but then you get 4 charges of it, and then you can dispel them. And yes, they're skill shots, but like let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a bean. They are not hard to hit. And the reward is really big. But you also have Icarus Dive, which is a very wonky mobility tool that you have to cancel, and then there's like a weird pseudo delay. If you ever played Phoenix and you're not a Phoenix player, so you're not used to it yet, you'll be like, what? Why didn't I stop when I wanted to? But like, it's fine. And then you have your ultimate, which is extremely risky, because if you don't do it well, you die. And then Sunray is also a really weird ability. Phoenix is one of those, I was just talking about this with someone in the Discord earlier today. Phoenix is one of those heroes that I constantly see Grandmasters on. Like level 30 Phoenixes, and they're doing their triumphant squawks. Because he's such a weird hero that I feel like if you're really into Phoenix, no other hero can really scratch that itch. He's a very unique design, so you do need to have a lot of specialties to him. But the rewards are quite sweet. And then I don't think he falls into genuinely difficult. I think he just is specialty required. He just has a lot of unique mechanics. Primal Beast is, I understand it now. You need a game or two to understand the best way to use charge in his ultimate, and then trample. He's like borderline GG easy, actually. Just be a meathead. You put someone on this, someone who understands how to play Dota, you put him on Primal Beast, and you're like, yeah, just be an offliner. Hit your buttons when it feels right. And like, they cast their... He's in GG easy. Now that I'm really thinking about it, he's down here. Puck. Puck is actually in genuinely difficult. Gonna even out the tiers. So, the thing about Puck is... First off, you need great reaction times. That's the number one thing. Second off, you need to... It's resource management, but in a very different way from Earth Spirit's resource management. Because you're focused almost entirely on your cooldowns and juggling them to make sure that the enemy team cannot get their freaking hands on you. Because when they freaking get you, they're going to get you. So you need to be very careful. And you need to play around the edges of a team fight. When you cast a spell on Puck, you need to be really careful about when you do it and why. Because you're not going to get another chance to use it until it comes off cooldown. Which is such a nothing thing to say. But that means so much more on Puck than any other hero. Because you have your W, which is a silence. So if you're in phase shift and there's a guy with a hex waiting for you to come out, like a shaman or a lion, you use W as soon as you get out. And that buys you more time for your Q to travel and for you to get further away. Or time for your blink dagger to come off cooldown. Or time for your Yules, if you have that. Or time for your ultimate if you're trying to kill him. And and it's just the option decision making for Puck is extremely wide and extremely complicated. And then on top of that, your hero itself is like not doing you any favors. Because like Puck's damage is not very good, their projectile speed is not very good, they don't have a ton of HP, their mana pool is like just low enough that you're like, man, I wish I had more. If you had like 100 more starting mana and like 0.3 more regen, you'd be like, yeah, Puck. But you don't have those things. So the fact that you require fast fingers on them for several different things, you need to be very careful about resource management, and your spells are very committal, and you can boof your ulti, is all of that combines to make a hero who's only... Like, if Puck had grief potential, they'd be in Galaxy Brain. But they don't actually. I guess you could push people off the cliff with that one facet that people don't go. Like, the one that isn't curveball. I guess you could do that. But, like, I've never seen that happen. So they're going to go in genuinely difficult. Puck is a very difficult character to play for many different reasons. But they are so fun. I love this hero. I don't play a lot of heroes that are up here. I had an Arc Warden phase. I've had an IO phase. I had a Meepo phase. And I have... I'll whip out the Puck every now and again. I've been meaning to play Morphling for the past, like, 2 years. The past 2 years of playing Dota, I've been like, alright, today's the day, and then I pick, like, Wraith King. It's so funny to me. And Pudge. So Pudge is it's a difficult skill shot to hit, man. If you have never played Pudge or you're not familiar with his game, it is actually kind of tough to hit Hook, because it has a really long, like, cast point. It's part of why Rubik loves sealing it so much, because he doesn't have to deal with that. It's a hero that everyone picks, but, like, very few people actually play him to what I would consider the minimum degree of competency. So, in a weird move, the most popular hero in all of Dota is going to be a specialty required hero, because you do need to be good at hitting the hooks in order to play him to what I would consider to be a competent degree, which is the criteria of the tier list. The rest of him is pretty simple. You need to have some HP management with Rot, but like, that's it. It's really just, can you hit hooks? It comes down to one big question. but it's a question written in all caps and an upside down question mark at the beginning, like in Spanish. Pugna is like pretty easy. You have grief potential with decrep, so I think you need a game or two to like really understand how to play them well. And there's a lot of little tips and tricks you can do, like when it comes to hiding Nether Ward or like using Nether Blast like its optimum potential. There's some stuff that you can figure out on Pugna, but it's stuff that you don't have to look up. You don't have to be like elite top 200 MMR Pugna. You can just play the hero a couple times and you'll figure this shit out on your own if you have a working brain. Queen of Pain is also kind of, I understand it now. She's not mechanically difficult. All of her abilities are super simple. You know, you cast Sonic Wave once or twice, and you figure out immediately, like, oh, okay, I can't be right in the middle of the fight. I need to sort of be on the side so it expands and hits multiple heroes well. And then if someone's, like, right on top of you, it's really difficult to hit. In the same way that Pudge's Hook is, for example. So, she's not hard. It's just you need to know... It's hard to recognize when you're strong on Quap. That's sort of the thing. Because of all the magical burst heroes in the game, like, Leshrac gets on you and, like, obliterates you over the course of 2 seconds. Or like Lina does combo and kills you instantly. But Quap she's not really like that. She needs a little bit. She wants to dance around for a little bit. Which is very on theme with her character, like her lore design, right? You gotta tango for a second or two. So she's gonna go and I understand it now, but she's got some complexity to her, but she's also, her kit is just very simple. It's just, her kit in action is slightly more complex than it might look. Razor is another I need a game or two. His ulti is very weird. Static Link is a very weird ability. His passive is very weird. All of his abilities you need to see in action, and then his item theory is also very complicated. There's a lot of different items that you can go on Razor, and pretty much all of them can work in some games. Stop buying Maelstrom. Stop buying Maelstrom on Razor. I get it. He's made out of lightning. So you're thinking to yourself like, oh, I should get lightning. But you wouldn't buy it on Zeus. You don't buy it on Zeus either, do you? I really hope you don't. Item theory is the big reason why Razor goes, and I understand it now. But he's not a difficult hero to play. But I love him very much. He's my beautiful baby boy. Ricky is... He's got so many get-out-of-jail-free cards that I can't call him difficult. He's invis all the time, which is kind of the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card, because maybe they don't have Dust, and they don't have a Sentry down. But you also have Blink Strike, you have Tricks of the Trade, you have so many ways of evading people, and it's not like you need fast fingers to use them. The cast startup of Tricks of the Trade is the only road bump in the way to dodging, like, a massive chunk of spells. Anything that can be dodged, it's very easy to dodge, as Ricky. So I'm going to put him in I understand it now, but you do need to have, like, not fast fingers, but functioning fingers. You know, if you had an accident in shop class, this maybe isn't the hero for you, but for everyone else, it's, like, fine. Ringmaster, he's got some finesse to him, and he has a lot of different spells because of his innate. He's going to go and I understand it now as well. And then you have to understand it again when you switch to the other facet, which I really hope they buff, because it'd be fun if he got to use both facets, but right now he currently doesn't. Rubik is specialty required. This hero is not that hard. People, and this is not disrespectful to people who play Rubik. Look, I'm a Crystal Maiden lover, and she's down here. Like, Rubik isn't that difficult. It's just a matter of using Spellsteal well and learning how to target telekinesis. That's it. Now, I say that's it, as if learning Spellsteal isn't one of the hardest support ultis to use in the entire game. But it doesn't really have grief. Well, it does, because if you steal something with grief potential, then you can grief with it. But the floor is, like, kind of high, and the ceiling is, like, fucking... I'm pointing up in real life, and it's actually above the ceiling that I'm currently in. It's sky high, which you can do with this hero. And then there's some... Like, the game also tees some shit up for you. Like, oh, you got Black Hole as Rubik? Cool. Until you think for a quarter of a second, and you realize how that actually isn't impressive at all. And there's a lot of spells that are like that. Oh, you got Shackles. Good job, dude. So he's going to go in specialty required because there is a lot of niches and you do need to know everyone's ultimate. But learning 125 ultimates is a lot easier than learning 125 kits that you have to do with Morphling, which is why he's up here. And also managing your HP to Agi ratio, because you can mess that up and look like an idiot in front of the whole squad. Sand King. You need to learn... Figuring out how to cast Epicenter was actually something I struggled with when I first started playing Dota. But you do it once, and you're like, oh, that's how it works, and then that's it. So he's going to go in GG easy. Shadow Demon is low-key specialty required. You need to learn a lot of things to use him super effectively. Disruption is a very powerful skill, but you need to know the situations where it's good to use it and why. And it has both offensive and defensive capabilities. Also, his Disseminate is a very weird ability. Shadow Poison isn't that weird, nor is his ultimate really that weird. It just sort of, but it's like awkwardly timed, because the damage from his ultimate happens at the end, which is so weird. Like, I get why they did that. It gives it an identity, but it is also a very strange thing, and you need to kind of see it in action. And you need to see the full thing. If they kill it before the damage happens, you're like, man, my ulti sucks. It's just a slow. But no, it's actually a lot more than that. Shadow Demon's a weirdo. Shadow Fiend is... Man. Let me think for a second, because skill shots, yeah, but the skill shots are not that hard. It's just getting in a position where you get to do all three is kind of a difficult thing. But landing two of them is, like, not hard. He's going to be another, oh, I understand it now. Throwing jelly beans in a water bottle from across a parking lot. I understand it now. So, which I would think puts him in the higher echelons. The ceiling on this hero is very tall, because you also have the two different builds to go through. He might be... We're going to move him in specialty required because of the fact that there are two different competing builds on him, and you kind of need to learn them both. So he's going to go up here. You do need to be an SF player in order to play this hero effectively. He's going to go up here. He's another example of a kind of a weird hero with his own mechanics. Like, you have the soul system, his ulti is awkward. Shadow Shaman is... I understand it now. Is he? He's in GG Easy, actually. He's not hard. You have Hex, which is an ability that's shared with Lion, and also on an item called Scythe of Vice. Where did I put... Did I put Lion in GG Easy? I did, right? Yeah, he is. He's over here. Look, they can wave hi to each other. Shackles is a very straightforward ability, very easy to understand. Ether Shock is super generic, and then his ulti is like kind of weird. And yes, you could micro whip, but you also like don't have to. Like, you don't have to give a shit. You can let the snakes kill the creep wave first. It's not a big deal. Silencer is also GG Easy. His name is Silencer, and he silences. What else do you want? Like, he's very, very simple. The only thing you have to learn is how to use your abilities as a combo, because on their own, they really don't do that much. But you need to cast Arcane Curse and Last Word together, and that's nothing. I guess it's something that someone has to tell you, because they don't explicitly name each other in their tooltips, so I guess you do have to kind of, like, either figure that out on your own, or someone has to tell you, like, yeah, cast those together. But, like, that's it. That's fine. You can handle that. You're a big boy. Skywrath Mage is maybe... He's a very, like, he's Magical Burst the hero, but he's also super squishy and vulnerable, and he has no real defensive tools outside of a silence that is mostly being used offensively, and then Concussive Shot, which is, like, kind of a bad slow if you're using it to try to run away, because I'm assuming they're casting spells on you in the same idea. You do have to be a little bit careful about your positioning. He's one of very few heroes that can still die because they positioned like shit, but he's not that hard. All of his abilities are very simple. It's just his play patterns and ideas you need to play a game or two in order to get. So he's going to go, and I understand it now. Slardar is GG Easy. Very simple, very straightforward character to play, very satisfying. The rewards are good. I mean, the hardest part about Slardar, and it's not even a hard part, it's just like an unfortunate component of his design, is that when you blink on people, you have to crush them and then use your ulti to prevent them from, like, blinking away or something like that. I guess you could bash them. But either way, you're missing out on some of the physical damage that you would have dealt amplified by your ulti, but you don't get to do it because you need to disable their blink or stun them or whatever like that. So, you know, but that's not even... you buy a shard and you don't care about that anymore. I don't even know why I'm bringing this up as an example of difficulty. It's just something that you don't get to do as a result of his kit's design. Slark. Slark is, like, kind of tough. He's kind of tough, low-key, because you need good reaction times, but then your reaction times will always be worse than you just, like, predicting and getting lucky because of Dark Pact. Understanding your opponent's vision and how it plays into your team fight scenario, you also have a little bit of item theory. Not right now, you kind of just go diff and hang around, but, like, there are times you want to go Echo Saber, there are times you want to go Maelstrom, there are times that you want to go Midas on this hero. He's got a little bit of item theory in most patches, just right now he doesn't have that. So he's going to go in specialty required, and then understanding how to trade well, but you also, like, win a lot of lanes by default. He's a very weird character. But Dark Pact and needing to predict opponent spell usage or react to it very quickly for lower benefits is the reason he's going to go in specialty required. Dark Pact is a very strong spell. Snapfire. Technically, she has 3 skill shots. Like, not really, but that is technically true. I understand it now. None of them are that difficult. They're all straightforward and easy to understand. Missing a bunch of shots off of your ultimate is always embarrassing, but like missing your ulti is embarrassing on everyone. So what are you upset about? Sniper is GG easy. You can tell someone his name and they might be able to figure it out. They might find shrapnel to be weird, but like all of his kit is very simple. He's a sniper who gets headshots and he can throw shrapnel down as an AoE slow. Super simple. He's a menace in new player mode for very good reason. Do people still play that? I know I don't. Spectre, you kind of do need to know what you're doing. Spectre is another character where you really need to know when you can go in, and you're able to do so. And then there's the item theory. It's not, in this patch you go Orchid Manta. Radiance is a dead item on this hero. But oftentimes, like especially in older patches, it's like you have Blade Mail, you have Urn, you have a decent amount of items that you have to pick between when you're going a Spectre. And you need to recognize the situations for each one of them. That's kind of dead right now because we're in the super late game of a patch meta development. But Spectre still, you need to have a macro understanding. You need to like have your combo ready to go if you're going to be doing like Orchid Nullifier shenanigans. So there is stuff that you need to learn on Spectre that is enough to put her in specialty required because of the item theory that doesn't currently exist. The theoretical item theory. Item theory is the thing that you have to learn on this hero, which is weird. Couple of different heroes like that. She's still going to go in specialty required though. Spirit Breaker is like, I understand it now, partially for the same reasons as Spectre, humorously enough, because you need to watch the map and you need to understand when to go in. The thing is, you don't have an item combo to really go do. I guess you have to pop Shadow Blade a little bit before you hit them, but like, okay, poor you. I don't know what else to say. He's a pretty big little meathead hero. Big little meathead. That's actually, it's my nickname back in high school in the locker room. Storm Spirit is specialty required. All the spirits are going to be here. Or up, in the case of Earth Spirit. Yeah, Void Spirit might be, I understand it now. I'll decide that when I come to it, because he's my favorite. Anyway, Storm Spirit. Mana management is a huge thing. One of the really cool things that if you're learning Storm Spirit, you get to learn to do, is you get to abuse turn rate. Leaguelets could never. You jump on someone and you stun them, and then when they're facing you, you zip over them, and so they can't actually interact, and then they're slowed because they got hit by all your bullshit, and then they can't interact with you, and so you just zip back and forth over them, and they can't face you properly if you're doing it right. You know, will this protect you from a lion hex? Maybe not. And by maybe not, I mean it definitely won't. But there's a lot of things that will protect you from. And that's a weird, like, not very many heroes interact with turn rate. Him and Batrider are high-fiving right now. And then also mana management, understanding when to go in. There is real item theory on this guy. There's a lot of different items that you can go, you know, after a Kaya. You get a Kaya, but then it's like, what else? And you have a bunch of different options, and you have to decide what. So he is going to go in specialty required as a spirit, and then you also have to play him mid. Pause for Storm Spirit is not a thing. I don't care what that one guy in a ranked match I played 2 years ago argued with me until he was red in the face about. It is not real. I think about him sometimes. I wish him the best. Storm Spirit is specialty required. I hope he's still not picking Storm Spirit 4. Sven, GG easy. Ooga booga, me hit you. Me hit ulti, and me hit you even bigger. Very simple hero. Not a whole lot of finesse to him at all. it's like if you're the things that make you a good Sven player really are just things that make you a good carry player. Like, I'm good at making farming patterns. I'm good at recognizing when I'm about to get smoke ganked. Good job, dude. Pick literally any other hero and those will transfer 100%. That good job, dude, was not sarcastic. Techies, specialty required. Really just because of the mines. The rest of his kit is pretty straightforward. You can think of his... Someone brought this up to me the other day. But Techie's Suicide Squad attack, or what's it called now, Blast Off, is literally just Sand King Burrow Strike. It's just Sand King Burrow Strike. That's all it is. You know, the stakes are raised. It's a very high stakes Burrow Strike, but that's what Blast Off is. And I guess you don't stun people along the way, but it's an AoE at the end, so it kind of makes up for it. Yeah. I don't know why, but that cracked me up when he mentioned it to me, and I'm still thinking about it. And then the mines. The mines are a really weird mechanic that no other hero really involves themselves with. I guess you could say TA with psionic traps, but like not really. They're more similar, actually, than I immediately thought of. But for the most part, Taikis has some weird, unique things to them that you have to learn. But none of those things are particularly difficult. And then, where do I put my mines down? It's like you could literally put them down anywhere. No one on your team is going to care. You can do the thing where you put down 15 of them around the rune. And like, okay, well, I guess they're not getting that arcane. Or if they do, they're really going to pay for it. And bottle will not be enough to save them. Speaking of psionic traps, hello Templar. Positioning for Psyblades in the lane is the thing that makes you a good TA, and that is actually pretty difficult. I've had a few periods of time in my life where I thought to myself, I will become a Templar Assassin player. I will hit the meld button and right click. But no, it's a little bit more complex than I originally believed. Psyblades is a very interesting ability, and it's one that really separates the men from the boys. And it's such a weird effect that it kind of just goes in specialty required all on its own, recognizing how to use refraction very effectively, and also needing map awareness for traps, both to set them down and to pop them. She's going to go in specialty required. You have to be a bit of a TA player to play her well. This is bothering me. Terrorblade. Is he genuinely difficult? I almost want to put Terrorblade up here, but it feels weird putting him next to all of these other heroes. We're going to put him in specialty required as well. The thing about Terrorblade is you don't have to make a ton of decisions. Well, I guess in theory, you're deciding not to hit meta every tick of every match that you play as him, but the decisions that you do make are extremely high impact, right? Like what you choose to do with your 2 illusions. Do you send them to lane? Do you keep them in with you? That can affect whether or not they decide to smoke gank. But if you send them out, you can push the lane out and then decrease the odds. So if they don't smoke gank, then their macro game is worse and they're not going to be able to push the tower and force you out of the jungle. It also means that it's going to be more difficult for them to gank you if they don't have a smoke. Little decisions on Terrorblade really add up. And those decisions cost time and mana and GPM. Obviously, every carry's decision has an impact on the outcome of the game, but Terrorblade is paying for them in pretty unique ways that other heroes don't have to worry about, and then it's the matter of metamorphosis. And then it's also the matter of if you're playing TB, you're a bit of the star of the show, where you have to win the game for your team. Your team is expecting you to pull up and take racks, like get a triple kill and take racks and win the game. Eventually, you have to do that. Even if your mid laner is having a really good game, he's still relying on you to eventually win the game for him. So there's some unique macro stuff that you have to do as Terrorblade. He's not, I mean, you got a little bit of micro, tiny bit of micro, but not that big of a deal. Now that I'm thinking about it, Beastmaster's micro was a little bit more difficult than I gave it credit for, but whatever. He's up here anyway. He's going to go in specialty required. Tide is a big old, I made him the hero for meatheads. I'm pretty sure that was his title. Very simple. You'll boof your first Ravage. You'll also boof your 10,000th. Such is the nature of Tide. But he's very simple. Learning how to use his Anchor Smash well is good. And then one of his abilities, they put the active on Kraken Shell. Still not entirely sure why they did that. You can kind of just ignore it and still play Tide pretty effectively. And any hero who has an ability that you can, with an active, that you can just straight up ignore and still win on is going to go in GG easy. So, Tide Hunter is here. Minefield Sign doesn't count. Timber Saw, I understand it now, but he's a little bit higher up. There's some nuance to him. Like being able to very consistently Timber Chain out and use your Whirling Death like mid-flight to hit the target that you want is a little bit difficult. And you need to be able to space Chakram in a way that it's going to be very effective. And that can be kind of tough too. I would argue that you have to understand when and how and why to go in. But you also have your axe. And so you don't have to care about that shit. You can just do what you like. He's going to go and I understand it now. But he's on the higher end. He's got a pretty high skill ceiling. I also hate this hero with my whole body. We're not going to get specific. Tinker, speaking of hate. Tinker is difficult though. I'm not going to lie. He might be up here. I'm thinking of him as a mid. Support Tinker is like, I understand it now, genuinely. But like as a core, he is genuinely difficult. I'm going to rate him as a core here. Support, he's down here. And I understand it now. Pause 2 Tinker is another hero kind of like Terrorblade in the sense that your team is expecting you to win the game for them. Like, and maybe you can't, they're not expecting you to hit the Ancient, but they are expecting you to put the game in such a position that the enemy team cannot effectively teamfight into you because the Tinker is running the show with a Shiva's Guard and an overpowering blink and he has so much int that all of his item cooldowns are like super low. So you're kind of LARPing his old Tinker. Was it int? I think it's int that gives you CDR, whatever it is. And then you also have, maybe you go Dagon, but even if you don't have Dagon, you have Laser, and Laser does a ridiculous amount of damage. So you go Spell Amp, and you go Aghanim Scepter, and you go Shard, and you have March of the Machines going several times in a row. And you have to manage shields, both on you and on other people. So you have a shitload of buttons to press. He is a mechanically difficult character to play if you're playing him as a core. If you're playing him as a pause 4, he's like, whatever. But if you are still trying to emulate the like Kiyotaka golden age of Tinker bullshit, he's up here and genuinely difficult for sure. And you can tell I'm not biased right now, because if it were me, I would put this hero down in GG easy. I'd make a new tier called Tinker Sucks and put him in there. I was gonna say a different word. Tiny. Toss. But that's really it. I guess his Ags. Stand near trees. I understand it now. I actually don't. I'm Popico or Peepee. Which one is the little one with the orange hair? I'm her. Tiny is in I understand it now, mostly just because of toss. Avalanche is very simple. Tree grab is very simple. I guess you have to do it once or twice. 1 or 2 games to figure out the toss targeting, which honestly you could just do in demo mode. And you're good to go on Tiny. So he's gonna go there. But he is a very interesting. Part of me wants to put him up a little higher because you can play him in all 5 roles. And that really does a lot to like, because playing as a pause 4 Tiny is like, you need to be like a Kung Fu wizard to like actually get the most out of the hero. If you're not playing with a Magnus and doing cheese shit, So I've been trying to rate heroes in 1 role, but I cannot think I can't think of the role that I would assign to Tiny for this. And as a result, I'm going to put him up in specialty required, actually. Not just because of toss, though that is a kind of a make or break spell that you can grief with like crazy on purpose or on accident. But also just because you can play him in a bunch of different roles, and he plays massively differently in pretty much every single one. I guess 4 and 5 kind of play the same, but like 3, 2, 1 Tinies all do completely different things. Mostly. I guess they all buy Echo Saber. Treant Protector. He's got weird spells, but like, dude, you're Treant. Like, you're chilling, bro. You don't need to worry about that. You need to have some map awareness for living armor, but that's literally it. And then map awareness is just like, oh, my tier 1 is on 3/4 HP. I'm going to use my living armor on it. There you go. He's GG easy. Troll Warlord. Probably I understand it now. Actually, Troll Warlord is incredibly difficult now. I'm not doing that shit. You need... He's got a bunch of weird hidden rules on his ultimate that you kind of need to feel out for yourself. And his axes are kind of weird. And you need, because of his ultimate, you sort of need some good reaction times against certain, like Legion Commander, for example. If you can on reaction ulti when LC blinks in and tries to duel you, you kind of just win the game. Like, it's really difficult. But that's also a very difficult thing to do. Even if you're like looking for it, it can be difficult. And then you get lifesteal, like there's a bunch of different heroes that kind of do that. So being able to have good reaction times and knowing the weird rules of his ulti, which is something that takes more than 1 or 2 games to learn, but the idea is there. He's an I understand it now. Troll's a cool hero. Fucking Tusk. Does he go in genuinely difficult? I feel like you could be a smooth brain and get a lot of shit done with Tusk, I will say. I'm going to put him in specialty required. Being able to use Snowball effectively as a defensive tool is probably the hardest but most impactful thing that Tusk can do, right? I was just talking about Troll Warlord. Well, what if Tusk blinks in, snowballs, and just grabs whoever you're wailing on? Because you can't hit Tusk. He's in a snowball. You're going to reach in there? It's cold. Like, it might frostbite your fingers off. He's in specialty required mostly because of that. Also, you have like weird vector targeting on the kick. Walrus Punch is a very weird ability, and using it effectively is sometimes a little counterintuitive because you don't always want to open with it. And then Frost Shards is like an honorary skill shot because you do have to aim it. You have to use it well. And it's got some grief potential. Underlord is probably GG easy. He's another hero. Like, you kind of... I'm struggling to think of like what on him you could fuck up. I guess what's it? You like can't put the portal down while you're in Fountain. You have to walk outside a little bit. Is that it? Like that's, you could be a good. There are good Underlord players and bad Underlord players, but getting to the point where you can play him with intentionality is like literally 5 minutes. You open up demo mode and it'll take you like 20 seconds. You just hit all his buttons and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And that's it. And then it gets better because in demo mode you don't have all the atrophy or damage. But in real games you do. Undying is probably, I understand it now. He's not hard. He's not hard. It's just a matter of knowing when to put Tombstone down and try to cash in on all the strength that you've stolen from your opponents. And the pressure for that used to be a lot higher. Undying, before his like kind of ulti rework, was probably up here. And they made it so that you needed to, when your HP got, or your strength came back, it came back full, right? Back then, he was a much more difficult hero because you needed to capitalize on all the damage there, or the strength that you stole. I'm having a stroke now. But nowadays, you're just dealing damage. It's just a magical nuke. Like, at the end of the day, like, that's really kind of what it is. So, he's going to go, and I understand it now. Just use your Tombstone good. And don't misclick Soul Rip. Ursa is probably GG easy. The harder part of him is really just recognizing like when to go in fights, because if you're playing against high priority supports like Oracles and Witch Doctors and such, you can't just jump on the first guy you see. You need to kind of hang out in the trees and wait for them to show and then go on them, which is a little bit unusual. It's usually like mid laners who are doing that sort of thing, but Ursa's job is to do that. So he's a little bit unusual in that capacity, but other than that, he's very simple, and his lane is quite good. There's not much else. There's just you have to play team fights slightly differently. Other than that, he is like a perfect 5 out of 10. Venge. Low-key, and I understand it now, but I'm not going to put it there. You can have bad ultis, because remember, you can use them offensively and defensively, which means you can grief. Most abilities that you can use on your teammates, you have the potential to really boof things bad, and you can do that on Venge for sure. But her Q is like the stunnest to stun in the game. Her W is very simple and easy to use. Vengeful Aura makes it so that you're always useful, even if you're not. And then her ulti, which you can mess up, but like boo-hoo, who cares? And you get Shard, and now your stun is the even stunnier. The even stunnier stunnest stun in the game. Venno, his ability to kind of lock down an area. I talked about it with Broodmother, and I was like, I can't think of another hero that does that. Oh wait, Venno. But look me in the eye and tell me that Venno's a hard hero. You can't do it. You'll burst into flames. He's all right. I'm struggling whether to put him in GG Easy or I understand it now. I guess you do have to mess around. Like, his ulti is kind of weird to use it super effectively, and then you also need to pseudo-micro the wards. So I think he goes in I understand it now. But subject to interpretation. Viper. GGZ is Viper. Need I say more? Visage. Specialty required. A lot of people would say, so back when you had to kind of recharge the baboos when they ran out of damage, I would maybe put him in genuinely difficult because you sort of had to, I wouldn't say micro skills, but you needed to know like some basics. Nowadays, you really just drop them down when they're about to die, and that's the only micro that Visage really has to do. Other than that, you can kind of just unified orders or use them to scout because they have unimpeded vision or unimpeded movement. So he's going to go in specialty required, and the rewards are so sweet. I've joked about it. I feel like I joke about it all the time lately, but Visage has legitimately been overpowered for the last like 4 years. It's just no one plays him. No one likes this hero. I'm part of the problem. You know, I'm able to recognize how strong this hero is because you get hit by Soul Assumption and take 400 damage at the rune fight, and you're like, well, there I go. And then it gets bonus gold. Void Spirit, probably the easiest of the spirits. I would still say specialty required. He does not have the same resource management style that a lot of the other spirits have. But Aether Remnant is a very weird ability that you have to use in a way that is very unique from pretty much any other stun in the game. But his W and his E and his ulti are all so straightforward. His ulti's got a little bit of special ruling to it because it's a debuff that you can refresh. So you can actually boof your own damage if you use both charges close enough to each other. You try to like unzip a hero and it turns out you're actually doing less damage than you intended. You're just doing it very quickly. And also now you don't have any charges left in your ulti. I'm tempted to move him down here. Yeah, I'm gonna put him in I understand it now. So the spirits average out to specialty required. But Void Spirit is, if you're not a mid laner, but you want to learn a spirit-esque hero, I mean, he is by definition a spirit. But if you want to dip your toes in that experience, Void Spirit is by far the easiest you can get to. But he's got a lot of tech, he's got a lot of nuance. Aether Remnant is a very fun spell. And it's got a lot of niche applications. Warlock is 100% determined by whether or not you can control the golem. The thing about Warlock, though, is a lot of his kit is designed in such a way that you don't have to do anything but micro the golem. Like, you can sit there and stir the soup, tab over to the golem, and then devote 100% of your attention to just making it walk around and hit things. Or you Fatal Bonds, you throw Shadow Word on your carry or whatever, and then you go hide in the trees, and then you can devote 100% of your attention to microing the golem. He's a very friendly, like, come on, ride the bus type of micro hero. And that's interesting. I really like that Dota has that sort of thing. Shadow Shaman is kind of in a similar boat. I talked about this in the Argo collab vid that I did a while back. Weaver... Warlock's in GG easy, by the way. Warlock... Weaver... He's an I understand it now. Knowing that Shikuchi does not have a ridiculously low cooldown before you hit level 7 is like the only lesson you really have to learn in your first game on Weaver. And, you know, using time-lapse in an important way, target priority, a lot of the normal skills that you have, I'm assuming this is Weaver as a carry. Weaver pause 4 is like, boof. I don't know if people are still playing that or not, but he's just a hero that you can mess up on as a carry if things go south. But if things go south on Weaver, it's because you messed up, usually. And, you know, you get doomed or whatever, but again, you say that for literally every hero in the game. He's just got some weird applications because of Shikuchi and his ulti, but other than that is whatever. Do what you like. Wind Ranger is, I understand it now. The only, like, hitting the blind power shots is difficult, and getting the boof shackles is also difficult. That's it. She's a very simple and straightforward character. In a really old Sir Action Slacks video, I think it was the one where he was complaining about Wind Ranger, people picking it in TI elimination games or whatever. I don't remember the full specifics of that video, but he did talk about how, like, Wind Ranger is a League character, which is very true. I don't play League, but, like, I have friends who do, unfortunately. I'm trying to get them clean, but, you know, sometimes you gotta let people live their life. I've shown them Wind Ranger, and they're like, yeah, you could literally put her in League. Like, add 5 more sentences to each of her abilities, and she would slot right in. Because every ability in League of Legends reads like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. So, people call Dawnbreaker a League character, but, and, you know, she is. But Wind Ranger is actually the secret League character. She's in I understand it now. There's just not that much to learn, but the things that you do learn, you know, have a bit of a high skill ceiling, like getting really good shackles and hitting good power shots. So, which, again, it's just skill shots. She's just here because she has skill shots. That's it. Wyvern. This is a hot take. I'm gonna hot take this one. She's actually up here. She's actually up here because of the grief potential. I talked about how grief potential was a big deal. The last time that I did one of these big tier lists about how salty heroes make you, Winter Wyvern got a tier of her own, which in retrospect, I should have put Tusk in that tier as well. But this is about difficulty. Wyvern's ultimate is a make or break ulti like no other because of its duration. If you and the fact that it overrides everything else. So you could pop a black hole down, but if her ulti is active, the black hole is completely useless. It does literally nothing. Especially if she gets a kill with it and it resets the duration. Then it does literally, you could pop refresher and then black hole again. And then if she gets 2 kills with her ultimate, both of your black holes don't do anything and now you're out of mana. Don't do that. Both of you. But you also have Frozen Embrace, which can ruin your BKB. It can ruin your steroid ulti. It can also just get you killed, because there's a lot of magic damage in this game, and Frozen Embrace leaves you a sitting duck for any and all forms of magic damage, even if that magic damage comes in the form of a right click, because you can still hit them. Right? Yeah. OD, for example. Like, there's a lot of shit that you can... hot water galore that you can get yourself in as a Winter Wyvern. And that grief potential coming from not just one, but 2 sources. One of which ruins your allies' team fights, the other of which gets your carry killed, is like you really have to walk a fine line when you're playing this hero. She is not mechanically difficult at all. Her macro game is as simple as can be. She just is a, like, blast support. Her lane is simple. All of her abilities are fairly easy to understand. It's just in application, you can really goof everything up. Hardcore. Like, and it feels weird to put her up with all of these heroes, but like it also doesn't. Like, it feels kind of right to have her up here. This is maybe my hottest take of the entire tier list, but Winter Wyvern is a very difficult hero to play to the greatest degree of effectiveness without murdering the rest of your team. Or making the rest of your team want to murder you. That could happen as well. Genuinely difficult, Winter Wyvern. Feel free to be mean to me in the comments, because there is no wall of text this video. Witch Doctor takes a game. It takes a game. What it really takes is opening up the settings menu and making it so that when you cast channeled abilities, you have to hit the S key. I played my first like 3 or 4 games of Dota. Within the first 20 games I've ever played in Dota, 3 of them were Witch Doctor games where I was like, how do I use my ulti? I keep using my ulti and nothing happens. It goes on cooldown, and my friends graciously, after a couple games of letting me do that, showed me the settings menu and taught me how to do that. There's not much to Witch Doctor, really. Technically another hero where you can kind of learn a little bit of micro on, because you can control the Death Ward, because you're channeling it, so what are you going to be doing? Toggling your W so you run out of mana faster? I don't think so, Buster Brown. You can tab over to the Death Ward itself and determine who it attacks, which is meaningful sometimes. Not always. With Cleft Death, it's, well, I guess it is still meaningful, but, you know, messing up isn't as punishing because of the little stream. You know when you go to the bathroom? Never mind. Wraith King. GG easy. Super simple. The only thing that you really have to learn on Wraith King is to buy a shard when they have mana burn and how to manipulate Skelly AI. And even if you don't manipulate Skelly AI, it's fine. The hero still functions. It's just like a nice little upside that will increase your GPM by a bit. Get you closer to that radiance. Super simple hero. Very easy. One of the easiest carries to play in the game. I love him. One of my favorites. Zeus. He's also GG easy. He's just magic damage. Well, is he? You need global map awareness, but there's also the default message in the game that says Zeus ult now. And then oftentimes, that is one of the most common calls. Like, if you could sort callouts in Dota by frequency, one of the most common ones is like, Zeus, use your ulti, or something to that effect, or like pinging you to ult. So, I think he's GG easy, but he does have, well, he has Nimbus too, which requires even more map knowledge. I'm going to put him up and I understand it now, but like just barely. He barely squeaks in because of the map awareness. From not one, but 2 sources, that being his ulti and Nimbus. So he's going to go there. So there you go. It feels a little weird to have this ratio of genuinely difficult and galaxy brain, but that's how it is. So these are your top 5. If you're ever wondering who I consider the top 5 hardest Dota 2 heroes to be, it's Broodmother, Chen, Invoker, Meepo, and Morphling. There you go. Next up, Arc, Brew, Earth Spirit, Io, Puck, Tinker, Winter Wyvern. Probably the hottest take on this list, but I do genuinely believe it. I'm not going to read them all off. This is specialty required. You can read them if you want. I don't think I had too many hot takes in here. Some people might be like, oh, Anti-Mage is easy, because when he hits me, I run out of mana. And you're free to think that way if you want. Reminder that Enchantress is like the zoo version of the hero, not just chucking impetus on you over and over again. Kaz is here because of the rewards being so good, as opposed to being genuinely difficult. He is a very complicated hero still. He deserves to be in one of these 2 tiers. I'm just putting him here for peace of mind. Pudge is over here too, and specialty required. People might be mad that I put Slark in here. If you get mad about this, you're an offline player. Good luck, dude. I can't even think of it. I was going to say pick X, but I actually cannot think of an offlaner that beats Slarkus. So just good luck. I understand it now. Heroes that require a couple games, like 1 or 2 games, to be like, okay, now I understand what this hero is trying to do. It basically just means that like their abilities have a level of complexity or vagueness to their descriptions where you kind of have to see them in action, and in action from your own perspective, not from another person's, not from a teammate's, from you, in order to really understand what they do and what they're about. And then GG easy, which is just like, you know, you cast their spells once and you're like, okay, I get it now. Straightforward heroes, not much to learn. Marcy might be a hot take in this because like technical skill shots, but like shut up. There you go. That's the list. Thank you very much again to Blast for sponsoring this video. Really looking forward to people seeing what I've put together for the tournament. I hope it goes well. If it crashes and burns, I will never get sponsored by another tournament again. So really hoping it does good. But maybe we'll talk about that in tomorrow's video. Thank you guys very much, and peace on planet Earth.